Who's got time for all of this? Introducing Crimson Desert, a trendy combination of your favourite bits from The Witcher 3, Red Dead Redemption, Zelda, Assassin's Creed, Scotland,
What up and down you were dead,
and many more. Now that's what I call open world. In a year of landmark open-world games, Crimson Desert promises to scratch as many itches as possible with its plethora of features and mechanics unapologetically cribbed from other popular titles, with everything from Assassin's Creed to Tears of the Kingdom represented in this cheeky mixtape of bits you liked from other stuff. And that's no shade from me. As a massive fan of the genre, open-world games The Game is as solid a pitch as Hampton Park in winter. H.G. Wells might well have called it the open-world game to end all open-world games if he wasn't dead. But how can such a pick and mix of disparate elements come together into a satisfying whole? Is this a case of too many mechanics spoiling the car? Well, it might be instructive, first of all, to look at the games that it doesn't crib from. The USP of Crimson Desert is freedom. Freedom from the constraints or rules, for example, normally associated with an open-world combat system. Think of the rock-paper-scissors approach favoured by Ghost of Tsushima and its stance-based melee, the rhythmic counter-chaining of Assassin's Creed or Batman Arkham Asylum. In those games, the combat is designed to work in a prescribed way. Encounters are designed with specific strategies in mind, and your success as a player depends largely on how well you execute that strategy. Crimson Desert is trying to be a lot different in its approach, which takes its inspiration from arcade fighting games such as Samurai Showdown and King of Fighters. A huge array of melee, ranged, magic and opportunistic environmental attacks that can be endlessly chained together as befits your playstyle, turning the acrobatic combat into a dazzling work of art in the right hands, controlled with Street Fighter 2 style button and stick combos that require careful execution and timing to pull off effectively. Crimson Desert goes for an accessible but difficult to master style of offense in which there are no hard-coded ways to, say, defeat a boss, no specific requirement to use any particular attack, magic or environmental advantage that might be available. You can, in theory, just batter everything to death with a sword, but the flourishes are there if you want to use them, which you probably should because, you know, you'll have a much better time of it. It reminds me a little of when, years ago, Peter Molyneux was working on Fable 2 and he wanted to design its combat system to be accommodating but also rewarding for people who like being good at stuff. Something that would allow you to get through the game if you just tried to artlessly clobber everything without engaging the deeper systems, while offering enough depth to keep seasoned players interested.
And you will be able to finish this game if you're a button masher.
Crimson Desert is certainly intended to be a lot more challenging than that, and we're definitely not talking about one button combat here, we're talking about multi-button, many buttons, all the buttons combat. But the key thing is that its approach isn't about difficulty, it's about encouraging you to use the full set of moves without funneling you down any particular path. An extraordinarily hard thing to pull off, I'd imagine, but if they do it, it's an intriguing USP for a game that doesn't seem all that concerned with uniqueness on the surface. Hidden depth nestled among acres of inviting familiarity is perhaps the hook of Crimson Desert. There's something for everyone in here. If you like the parkour of Assassin's Creed, the traversal of Breath of the Wild, the system richness of Dragon's Dogma, and the sophisticated environmental simulation of Red Dead 2, yes to all of those obviously, then there's a lot to like in this extensive package. There's even heavy shades of The Witcher 3 in its contract system, and its roots as an MMO spin-off manifest in its physical layout. Adjacent to the usual set of distinct areas with their own factions, quest lines, architecture and levelled enemies, there sits the titular Crimson Desert, a tantalisingly vast and lawless expanse to explore if you think you're hardy enough to go picking through desolate canyons for loot. Surely if this was an MMO, that would be the PvP area, right? Yes, Crimson Desert started production as a single-player prequel of Black Desert Online, the popular sandbox MMO from Korean developer Pearl Abyss. Presumably it was originally supposed to be an origin story about how the desert got its colour, but since its inception the parameters of the project have changed vastly. It's now considered to be a standalone title whose ties to Black Desert will be trivial at best, but one of the key things to keep in mind here is that Black Desert Online is generally considered to be one of the more solo-friendly MMOs on the market, to the point where many of its veteran players regularly complain about its general lack of group-based content. So let's have a quick rundown of the Crimson Desert features we're aware of so far and what might have inspired them. We've got Assassin's parkour. I mean, I like climbing buildings, you like climbing buildings, right? Tears of the Kingdom's floating island realms and hints of a high-tech civilization upending its high fantasy tropes. The Witcher's grounded low fantasy elements, peasantry covered in the job system, Monster Hunter's cooking and monster hunting, the world and environmental simulation of Red Dead 2 and Dragon's Dogma, harsh, naturalistic game worlds that frankly carry on existing regardless of what the player is up to. I always find that cosmic indifference is the pinnacle of escapism. A deep, rich fighting system taking cues from the likes of King of Fighters and other combo-based move systems, monster mounting from the small-scale stuff in Dragon's Dogma, etc., to the vast bosses as puzzles, saga-worthy showdowns from Shadow of the Colossus or perhaps God of War, Spider-Man swinging, dragon riding, environment damaging, cutting about, feeling smashing, battering guys in stupid hats, and mech piloting power armor that uses so much fuel you only get to use it for about 5 minutes at a time, and probably without the ability to stockpile fusion cores, so a bit like Fallout 4, but also not. Look, I love Bethesda, but I very much suspect that Crimson Desert will be more committed to balancing. What else? Oh, the triple-protagonist setup of GTA 5, they just revealed that. And from the Elder Scrolls? Well, this is a bit of a stretch, but it's certainly something that I associate heavily with Elder Scrolls, and that's a sense of refuge. Safe places to exist in, welcome quiet moments between the death-defying hunts and world-saving quests, light moments to contrast with the dark, a chance to talk to the monsters. Obviously, it's not as simple as this. It's not like Pearl Abyss have just picked these things off a menu, and there's so much cross-pollination of features between all of these games that you can't definitively say X came from Y. But there is a sense here that the developers know exactly what kinds of fun they want you to have in their game, because they know how these things work in other titles. Replicating some of the magic from Zelda, Red Dead and all the others and remixing it into something new is hardly an easy thing to do. I hope it comes together in the final release, and I very much suspect it will, but with this caveat. With all of these interlocking systems and such a high fidelity presentation, I mean, just look at those particle effects, Jesus. Surely all comes at a high cost. My concern, and it's one that seems to be shared by the rest of the gaming community, is that current gen hardware just isn't going to cut the mustard on this. Wait, do you cut mustard? It doesn't matter. Look, time will tell, but I think it's pretty clear that just like so many ambitious games before it, the definitive way to experience Crimson Desert simply might not exist at launch. If there aren't murders about the state of the Series S version, I will be so surprised. Aside from those concerns, it seems to me that a foray into a AAA single-player action-adventure is an extremely natural fit for Pearl Abyss. They have the tech and expertise with which to build a compelling open world, a healthy love and understanding of the action-adventure genre, and crucially, plenty of cash flow. Black Desert Online is an enormously successful MMO with tens of millions of players that's raked in over $2 billion USD in just over a decade, and while that doesn't exactly equate to Rockstar North levels of money in the bank to spaff on horse or whatever, it seems like Pearl Abyss does have the resources and the vision to effectively blend all of these half-inch knickknacks into a grand, cohesive, systems-based super game to rival that of its contemporaries this year, yes, including the seemingly unassailable GTA 6. I am genuinely not sure which one of these I'm looking forward to more, but at least in the case of Crimson Desert, I won't be waiting very long to find out if it's any cop or not. For more upcoming Crimson Desert coverage and all the other great and rubbish things coming in 2026, make sure you subscribe to Eurogamer. Eurogamer, this is our job.